Hey guys, back here with another video, and as you can tell in the title, I want to talk a little bit about the 19th anniversary to the very first Spider-Man movie from Sam Raimi himself, since today, May 3rd, marks the 19th anniversary to this amazing classic of a movie, and I don't plan on making this video long because I just wanted to make a quick video tonight about what the 19th anniversary means to me and just talk about my experience with the movie and share it with you all. So, as I'm sure as I'm sure it was for a lot of you watching this movie was, I would pretty much say, my first exposure to Spider-Man, like just in general, not just that, but it was like my very first introduction to the character of Spider-Man and his mythos and world and all of that stuff. Like, I basically learned my knowledge of Spider-Man from this movie alone, because this movie is basically how I started to learn about everything Spider-Man related. And I mean, I'm not entirely sure because, it's been a long time, but I think if I recall correctly, I did watch this movie, and I think the sequels as well. Well, particularly this film, since I'm talking about mainly this movie here. Um, I think I did watch this film when I was a lot younger, and if I recall correctly, I think my parents told me that they actually, when they went to go see this movie in the theaters nearly 2 decades ago, that they took me to see the movie with them when I was like almost a year old, because I was born in July and I would have been nearly a year old at that point. And so, I mean, of course, I don't remember seeing it as a baby, since I wasn't even a year old yet at that point, since this movie came out in May of 2002. So I think like a few years later, I mean, I'm not entirely sure, but I think I recall memories. I mean, they're very vague and very fuzzy, but I think I can recall some memories where I did watch specifically this movie and Spider-Man 2 when I was younger, but I didn't really fully remember it, probably due to the fact that I was like super young at the time, so I probably didn't remember watching it very well when I was like so young, but I do clearly remember the first time that I actually sat down and watched the entire Sam Raimi trilogy in one day. So it was about the summer of 2008. I had moved into a new place because I kind of moved in a lot when I was younger. And when I moved in the summer of that year, my dad turned on the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie. And like I said, I probably did watch this like years before that when I was younger, but my memories were like very vague and fuzzy, so I didn't really remember it that well. But watching, even though it probably wasn't my first time actually watching the film, but this was like clearly my first time watching it after, yeah, watching it and then remembering it afterwards. But I remember watching this movie in the summer of 2008. Like, my mind, I can't even begin to describe how I was feeling. Like, my mind was blown away. Like, I freaking loved this movie. I loved, like, literally every single thing about it, because everything just made me feel so connected to the movie. The characters were good, the story was great, the special effects, especially for a movie made in 2002, were very good. I freaking love this movie. This was like one of my favorite movies as a kid, and one of my favorite childhood movies for sure. Because it's honestly really hard for me to say which movie out of all movies from like my childhood is the most impactful, because I can't really name a specific number one because that's honestly really tough. But I will say without a doubt that Spider-Man 1 is without a doubt one of the most impactful movies that I have ever watched when I was young from my childhood. Because this movie, I mean, to this day, it even still impacts me when I go and rewatch it. Because the last time I watched this movie, it was like last year when the pandemic started becoming a thing, and I was thinking of watching it today, but I hadn't gotten around to it, mostly because I was busy marathoning season 7 of the Clone Wars since Bad Batch is coming out tomorrow, which I might make a video about. But anyway, uh, even watching this movie to this day, I still love it as much as I did when I was younger. And of course, that same day, I watched Spider-Man 2 after loving the first one, and I loved the sequel. And then watching Spider-Man 3, I loved Spider-Man 3. That was like one of my favorite movies as a kid. I loved it very much as I did with the first two because I watched literally all three Sam Raimi movies in one day during that year, like pretty much through one sitting, because I wanted to watch like literally every single Spider-Man movie. And I remember after I finished watching Spider-Man 3, I was like, let's watch Spider-Man 4. And then my dad tells me that we can't because there is no Spider-Man 4. And I was like, what? Are you kidding me? Because I want to watch more of these movies. And I remember being so bummed out that there wasn't a Spider-Man 4 because I literally wanted to watch it all because I was like in love with this trilogy. And I still am in love with this trilogy because this movie, and especially looking back at not just the trilogy, but specifically this movie as an adult now, as someone that's almost 20 years old, this movie, when I look at it now as an adult, I can see things that I didn't see when I was younger, like the message of the movie, because that's something I now see in writing nowadays is trying to look at the message of things. And I think the message of the movie still holds up very well because this movie really impacted me in my personal life because I know pretty much ever since I saw that movie, the first time I remember watching this movie, the one thing that this movie taught me is that you know, in order to have a good life is to be a kind and a good person because that's the thing that this movie has taught me is how to be a good person because of course with great power there must also come great responsibility as Uncle Ben would say and I kind of I basically like lived by the motto of the movie because of how impactful the message of the movie was and just the movie in general. And I still love this movie. It's one of my favorite Spider-Man movies and one of my favorite comic book movies of all time. I mean, it's hard to say which Spider-Man movie is my favorite, especially when Into the Spider-Verse came out. But as of today, like this, I mean, this may honestly be my favorite Spider-Man movie, I mean, yeah, sure, people will say Spider-Man 2 is the best, and don't get me wrong, that's a great movie, but in terms of like nostalgia and like my first exposure to the character, this may be my personal favorite because like if it weren't for this film, I don't think I would be necessarily the same type of person that I would be today and I thank this movie and just the trilogy in general for helping to create the person and geek that I am to this day. Because I don't know if it would be the same without not just the trilogy, but specifically this particular movie right here. And it's because of this movie that I watched the sequels. And because of watching this trilogy, I gotten more into comic books like the Spider-Man video games and the cartoons and all that stuff. And I remember when I was watching the Ultimate Spider-Man video game and when I learned it was based off of a comic book, I was like, holy crap, that's amazing. And so I had to go read the comic book because I didn't own them at the time, but I now own the complete collection of the entire series now but our I got into reading the Ultimate Spider-Man comic book series because of the video game, and it's pretty much that video game that pretty much got me into reading comic books in the first place because I wanted to know the rest of the story of that world from reading the comic books. And I can't thank this movie enough for where I am today. I mean, yeah, sure, there may be ups and downs in life, but this is definitely one of those ups in my life because, you know, I would not be the same person that I would be today if it weren't for this movie because this movie is still in my eyes such an amazing movie. And, because there's rumors of Tobey's Spider-Man coming back in Spider-Man 3. And if that is the case, hopefully they do the character justice and hopefully they do him well as he was handled in the Sam Raimi films. And I can't thank this movie enough for where I am in my life because, like I said, it wouldn't be the same without the trilogy and specifically this movie. And I thank the movie for making me who I am today. But yeah, I think because I can't really think of anything else to add to this that I can remember, but that's pretty much my, I guess you could say, my experience with the movie and kind of share some of my memories with this movie and how it was very meaningful because it has impacted my life with not just getting me more into Spider-Man, but it would also like impact me in other ways. Like I would want to dress up as Spider-Man all the time, and there was one time where I was like going to a place and I literally had a Spider-Man costume underneath my clothes, and oh my gosh, it was so funny. And oh man, those were such such good memories because I would always want to wear the Spider-Man costume and pretend to be Spider-Man and sometimes wear the black suit as well. And I would want to get all the Spider-Man toys as possible so then I can reenact the scenes from the movies because of how much I love them, which I still do. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say. I just wanted to make excuse me, I almost had a hiccup that almost interrupted my outro there, but I think before I got interrupted, I think that's pretty much all I have to say in this video. I just thought I'd make this quick video to share my experience with the movie and how it's impacted my life, and just talking about what the 19th anniversary of Spider-Man 1 personally means to me. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you want some more content, be sure to subscribe and all that stuff. I'd really appreciate it because I plan to have some more content out soon whenever I get the chance of it. And be sure to check me out on my social media. My Twitter and Instagram will be in the description down below so then you can get updates of when I'm going to be uploading some more content. And yeah, what did this movie mean to you personally? Feel free to leave your experiences of this movie and your memories in the comments down below. And I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you all on the next video. Peace, and a happy 19th anniversary to Sam Raimi Spider-Man 1.